job, and I appreciated the progress that was embodied in your opening comments. I think compressing the time, being more responsive, applying technology are all the things I like to hear and seldom do in other oversight hearings. So thank you for your work. I did want to talk to you about the letter last month that you sent to me in the office regarding deferred registration examinations. I know in there you said that you had heard the concerns of some of the proponents of DRE and that you were looking at maybe alternatives and I think alternative approaches, and you outlined some in your letter. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the alternative approaches and explain the nature, scope, and status of your review?
Certainly. Thank you, Senator. We are evaluating a number of options, as you indicated, and we're looking at the legal aspects and the technological aspects, and then what the practical impacts would be of each of them. But we're considering them very seriously. Now,
if you could also touch on, I want you to go through it, but also touch on which of these you can achieve through your current regulatory authorities and what may need additional congressional action.
Yes, thank you. We don't currently see the statute as a barrier to any of the proposals that we're considering, but they do require some technological changes. So we're looking into that as we develop the new enterprise copyright system. That doesn't mean we will wait until that system is completed before we do anything, but a lot of what these would require would have to be part of that development. So in particular, we're looking at the possibility of a dynamic fee structure going forward where some fees might be lower than they are today and some higher, and also the possibility of subscription pricing options, which stakeholders have expressed interest in. We have to see how those can be accommodated from a technological perspective. We're also looking at increasing the maximum the limit on the number of photographs that can be registered as part of one group application. So we're working with the library's chief information officer on how we can do that. We are also looking at the technology necessary for APIs to enable hardware and software and third-party organizations to achieve integration with our system. And then more immediately, in the coming fiscal year, we do plan to issue a notice of proposed rulemaking on a new group registration option for two-dimensional artwork. So we think a lot of those things respond to the concerns that were raised in the deferred examination study.
Can you talk a little bit more, or do you have any more specifics to provide on the way the fees would work or the fee structures?
We're beginning to look into that. So historically, the office has done a new fee study about every 5 years, and the last one was started in 2017, and the new fee structure went into place in 2020. So it's about time for us to start focusing on this. And as you know, we just hired our first chief economist in the office. So the chief economist is beginning by looking into what the demand side, doing some research on the demand side of what demand there is, what flexibilities there are, and what the price sensitivity of different kinds of registrants is, and then looking at also our costs in registering and recording different kinds of materials. So he's beginning with that study, and then once the study is complete, we will use it to inform a notice of public inquiry where we will get comments from the public on the policy issues involved in changing the fee structure. So I can't tell you now exactly what it will be, but we are starting the process.
All right. And what kind of timeline should we expect?
Our intent is to start the process in calendar year 2023.
Also in response to a letter that Senator Leahy, the chairman, and I sent back in June, you held a series of consultations this summer on technical measures and that identify or protect copyright works. Do you have any initial impressions from those work group discussions?
Yeah, they've been very helpful discussions and quite intensive. We had both plenary sessions and small group sessions of various kinds. And we're still analyzing the wealth of information we received. We also received something like 6,000 written comments, so there's a lot of material to go through. But I would say so far what is clear is that there was some convergence on the issues that were important to look at. And that included, first of all, and this is an issue we raised also in our Section 512 report a couple of years ago, that there is a wide variety of contexts in which technical measures are used and a wide variety of purposes for which they're used. Second, there was a lot of focus on the importance of being able to obtain quality metadata for technologies that allow identification and attribution of content. A third issue, the impact of the differential impact of using either automation or human review for some of these processes. And then a lot of interest in having the government, and in particular the Copyright Office, act as a convener to bring people together. So what we're doing now is drilling down into those issues a bit, and we will be identifying for you what are the areas of consensus and the areas of divergence on those topics. And we think that will be a useful exercise.
Yeah, just then, Mr. Chair, if I may, I was going to ask you about areas of consensus, but one, do you feel like that the stakeholder group meetings were well represented across the spectrum? And two, is there any particular area, consensus is great, particularly any areas that are pointing to a trend that we may have some more stakeholder work to do? And then finally, when should we expect a written work product out of it?
We had very good participation in the sessions, very broad representation of different interests. In terms of consensus arising, as there is consensus on what the issues are, and the value of the government convening, but as to the specifics of how those issues should be resolved.
Consensus on problems, not on solutions?
Probably, although we are still engaging in that analysis. So we're trying to pull out whatever consensus on ways forward we can find, and we will be able to give you more information on that. Our goal is to send over a report by the end of the year, so it will be fairly soon.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.